Level 1, the lieutenant. You are 22 years old and standing in front of a platoon that can tell almost immediately that you are new. Your bars are fresh, your boots still look too clean, and your confidence is being held together by caffeine, training, and the hope that nobody asks the one question you forgot to prepare for. Your platoon sergeant has been in the army longer than you have been fully grown, and he is not trying to decide whether you are impressive. He is trying to decide whether you are going to be useful, or whether he is about to spend the next 6 months protecting the platoon from its own lieutenant. That is one of the first things you learn. Soldiers do not care whether you look like an officer. They care whether you make sense when things start going wrong. They notice how you talk, whether you ramble when you get nervous, whether you can absorb bad news without letting it show all over your face, and whether your orders still sound intelligent once the plan starts coming apart. A radio dies. A truck is late, a private lies to you about something stupid, and a map that looked fine indoors turns into nonsense the second you try to use it outside. None of that sounds dramatic, but that is how the army teaches you. Not with one giant lesson, with a long series of smaller ones that all make the same point. Once you get into the field, the job becomes easier to understand. You are wet, tired, hungry, and trying to make a decision in the middle of the night while other people are waiting for direction. That is when you find out that leadership has a lot less to do with sounding good than people think. In those moments, what matters is whether you stay clear-headed enough to be useful. If you panic, everybody feels it. If you stay steady, even when you are not steady inside, the platoon keeps moving. The army does not need performance from a lieutenant. It needs somebody who can think in bad conditions. It also stops being abstract very quickly. The platoon becomes a collection of specific people instead of a formation. You learn who has a bad knee, who has money problems, who is going through a divorce, who never complains, and who jokes too much when he is nervous. One of the younger soldiers reminds you of your brother, which is not helpful because now every time he does something reckless, you feel two things at once. One is irritation, the other is fear. That fear becomes real the first time a training accident almost turns into something much worse. Nobody dies. Nobody even gets hurt permanently. But for a few seconds, while people are moving too fast, and the radio traffic changes, and the medevac process starts becoming real, you see the shape of your job in a way school never showed you. A bad call from you would not hurt the unit in some broad official sense. It would land on a person, and then it would land on that person's family. After that, you still want respect, but not in the same way. Mostly you want fewer avoidable mistakes and one full night of sleep. Level 2. The captain. This is when the army stops treating you like potential and starts treating you like a tool it intends to use. You have command now, which sounds grand, until you realize how much of command is made of maintenance problems, counseling statements, late paperwork, missing parts, family issues, scheduling disasters, and one soldier somewhere making an unbelievably bad choice at the worst possible time. Leadership is still part of the job, of course, but so is discovering how much of military life depends on forms, trackers, and whether the right person remembered to do the boring thing that keeps the important thing from breaking. As a lieutenant, you could still pretend that the mission was the whole job. As a captain, you find out that the mission has to share space with everything else. One soldier's mother is sick. One NCO is excellent in the field and impossible indoors. Somebody gets arrested on a Friday night. Somebody else is quietly coming apart and doing just enough to hide it. A truck stays dead because the part still is not in. A training event looks simple until you realize it depends on 3 separate approvals and one thing nobody actually confirmed. A company does not hand you one problem at a time. It gives you 7 at once and waits to see what you drop first. This is also where home begins feeling the strain in a way you can no longer explain away as temporary. You stay late because the work stays late. You tell yourself that this week is just bad, even when you already suspect next week will look almost exactly the same. Your spouse tries to be patient, and sometimes they are, but sometimes they are simply tired of living with a job that always has a reason it comes first. You miss dinners, you miss birthdays, and you start saying things like "after this cycle," as if life is going to reopen neatly one day and hand back everything that got postponed. Then you deploy, or rotate somewhere close enough to danger that the difference stops mattering. You sign movement orders, approve routes, authorize risk, and do it all with a calm signature that makes things look more controlled than they really are. That is when command gets heavy. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just heavy. One serious casualty in your company changes the sound of everything after that. Every brief feels different. Every convoy feels different. Every parent back home, even the ones you have never met, starts feeling like part of the room. The young soldier who used to remind you of your brother has moved to another unit by then. You hear his name once in passing, and later hear he made it home. The fact that this feels like unusually good news tells you something about what command has already done to your head. What you learn here is that a mission can succeed and still leave damage behind that never really goes away. The objective can be met. The report can look fine. A family can still get the worst phone call of its life. The Army is very good at carrying both truths at the same time. If you stay in command long enough, you learn how to carry them too, whether you wanted that skill or not. Level 3, the Major. Promotion starts feeling strange here because from the outside it still looks like progress, but from where you sit it often feels more like distance. You spend less time around formations and more time around planning, operations, timelines, briefings, and rooms full of officers, trying to make uncertainty sound organized. The work matters, which is exactly why it can start changing you in ways you do not notice at first. By now you understand that routes do not build themselves. Fuel does not move because somebody feels motivated, and medevac plans do not appear because a commander gave a speech. Somebody has to hold together the maps, maintenance windows, intelligence updates, supply timelines, airspace issues, backup plans, and all the quiet pieces that make the louder parts possible. Too often, that somebody is you. The problem is not that staff work is fake. It is that staff work can make everything sound cleaner than it is. A mess becomes a synchronization problem. A bad call becomes a planning shortfall. Exhausted soldiers become readiness numbers. You sit through enough briefings to realize the Army can turn almost any disaster into a presentation if given enough coffee and the right template. And once you see that happen a few times, you start hearing the gap between the language and the thing itself. You also spend more time around officers who know how to sound certain before they know how to be right. Everybody says they want honesty. What they usually want is honesty that arrives in a manageable tone and does not damage the briefing. A lot of your work now involves making large, complicated things sound under control for people who need them to sound under control. At home, you are around more often and somehow less available. Your phone stays face up. You answer questions before people finish asking them. You stop listening halfway through stories because part of your mind is already on tomorrow. You wake up thinking in timelines. Your spouse says you are here, but not really here. And the worst part is that they are not saying it to hurt you. They are saying it because it is true. Then one afternoon, you see the name of that old soldier from lieutenant days on a slide. He is not dead, which should feel like relief, but the line is still hard to look at. He is wounded badly enough to leave the Army, and not badly enough to leave the briefing. The room moves on to the next point. You keep your face still and say nothing, but something about seeing him reduced to a bullet point stays with you. It is the first time you feel, clearly, that distance is starting to change the way you process human cost. Level 4. The Lieutenant Colonel. At this rank, your habits stop being personal and start becoming weather. If you are tense, the battalion tightens. If you are sloppy, sloppiness spreads. If you are calm, people breathe easier. You no longer get to keep your mood to yourself. It moves outward. A lot of your day is spent balancing leadership with Army politics. And Army politics is exhausting because everyone can still tell themselves they are talking about readiness while obviously protecting careers, budgets, reputations, and future options. You live inside evaluations, training plans, command climate, resource fights, and the constant pressure to sound more certain than anyone really is. Everybody says the mission comes first, and that is true right up until something threatens a senior person's slide or timeline. You go to memorials more than you ever imagined you would. There is always a familiar shape to them. Families in the front row trying to survive the hour. A formation standing still. Words that are not wrong and still feel too polished for the thing they are trying to hold. After enough of those ceremonies, what starts staying with you is not only the grief, it is how practiced the institution is at continuing afterward. This rank is lonelier than people think. Everyone is respectful. Everyone is measured. Some are loyal. Some are ambitious. Some are scared. Most are some combination of all three. You can spend an entire day in command meetings, update calls, office conversations, and ceremonies without once hearing somebody speak to you in a way that is not shaped by rank. At home, the damage gets quieter. Your child eventually stops asking whether you will make it to the important things because they already know how that story usually ends. Your spouse stops arguing as much. That turns out not to be a good sign. One evening, while you are explaining another move, another delay, another season where the army needs a little more from all of you, they look at you and say, very calmly, that every version of the future you describe seems to require the family to keep waiting for a man who is never fully in the room. Then the ugliest part of command arrives, which is not one big dramatic moment, but a decision that looks manageable in a briefing and bad in real life. Move now or wait. Trust the intelligence or ask for more. Push harder or hold. Every option has risk attached to it. Delay has risk too. By this point, you understand that higher command does not come with clean hands. It comes with more carefully organized messes. Level 5, the Colonel. At this stage, the army becomes less about leading formations and more about managing systems, brigades, commands, budgets, readiness, manning, procurement, influence. Your decisions travel farther than you do now. You do not need to stand on a range to affect the range. You do not need to ride in a convoy to shape what leaves tomorrow. You brief people who speak comfortably about modernization, posture, deterrence, strategy, and future force design. Some of that is serious and necessary. Some of it is career weather in better language. The hardest part of this rank is not cruelty, it is abstraction. You can spend a full week making decisions that will affect training, deployments, staffing, and funding without once looking into the faces of the people who will absorb the cost. Distance makes almost everything sound neater than it really is. By now, the people you came up with are gone in different ways. Some retired, some promoted away, some divorced, some broke, some dead, some still functioning so well that everybody assumes they are fine, which is often the exact point where they are least fine. You begin to understand that institutional success and personal survival are related, but they are not the same thing. The old soldier calls you once. He walks with a cane now. He says he is mostly fine, which is exactly the kind of sentence soldiers use when they are not fine at all. The call is short, awkward, honest, and harder to sit with than any polished official conversation you have had all week. After you hang up, you sit in the quiet of a house that looks successful from the outside and feels airless from within. The visible parts of life may be better now. Nicer house, better schools when the kids still live there, better wine at official dinners, better furniture. None of that means peace moved in with you. Comfort and peace are different things, and one of them is easier to buy. Your children know by now that the army usually got the best part of you. Your spouse, if they are still there, can hear the difference between your professional voice and the real one. If they are gone, you probably tell yourself the army was not the only reason. That may be true. It was still a large reason. You also discover, with deep professional seriousness, that the army can put a room full of grown adults into a 90-minute meeting whose main outcome is the scheduling of a second meeting. Somehow both meetings matter. That would be almost charming if it were not so often attached to real consequences. Level 6, the General. From the outside, this looks like a rival. In some ways it is. You have real institutional power now. Your words move budgets, careers, doctrine, deployments, installations, and the schedules of thousands of people. The brief is waiting. The folder is ready. The driver is outside. The machine has learned your shape so well that from a distance it can look like control. From the inside, it often feels like haunted administration. You know too much now. You know how often certainty is performed, because uncertainty makes everybody nervous. You know how many families are downstream from a signature that looked completely clean when you put it on the page. You know that strategic language is useful, necessary, and polished enough that people can start forgetting where consequence actually lands. The loneliest part of this rank is not the responsibility, it is the distortion. Almost nobody speaks to you normally anymore. Some admire you, some fear you, some need something, some are trying to survive your opinion. Very few just speak. You can move through briefings, flights, ceremonies, dinners, secure meetings, and car rides for an entire day without hearing one sentence that is not shaped by your stars. Then one night you are home, if home is still the right word, and the house is quiet in a way that feels unnatural. No children left in it. Maybe no spouse in there. Maybe just plaques in drawers, medals in boxes, framed photos on shelves, and a phone that still feels half owned by the army. You wake at 3 in the morning because your body still believes something is about to happen. You check locks in a place that is perfectly safe. You stand there in the dark trying to remember what you wanted from this life when you were a lieutenant. Respect, probably. Purpose. Honor, maybe some version of meaning. You got all of it, but never in one piece, and never without the rest of the cost attached. By then, the truth is hard to miss. Rank did not take everything from you in one dramatic moment. It asked for a little more each time, and called that progress. A few weeks later, that old soldier sends you a picture in the mail. He is at a barbecue with his kids. The cane is beside the chair. On the back he writes, "Still here, sir," and stare at it longer than you mean to. For the first time in a while, the whole machine feels visible at once. What it sharpened, what it preserved, what it spent. Somewhere tonight, a young lieutenant is standing in front of a platoon for the first time. Maybe his voice is too loud. Maybe they still believe rank is a ladder. They do not understand yet that it is also a machine. It sharpens you. It consumes your time. It teaches you how to speak clearly under pressure, carry grief in formation, make decisions with incomplete information, and keep moving after losses that should have stopped you. It also teaches you how to live beside absence, beside distance, beside a kind of private damage that never appears in a promotion citation. You could warn them. You could tell them the bars and leaves and eagles and stars are real, but so is the cost. You could tell them every promotion solves one problem and creates a different form of loneliness. You could tell them power does not free you from consequence. It only changes the scale. Instead, tomorrow morning, you will put on the uniform, step into the car, walk into another room, and keep doing what officers at your rank have always done. Your face will stay calm, your voice will stay steady, and the machine will keep moving.